So yeah, Avengers already happened. That was great. But there was a movie that I kind of wanted to watch. I was kind of interested in, but it just kind of I lost track of time. Just didn't have time, and but found I did. And it was Rampage, and the second video game movie of the year. The first one being Tomb Raider, which I found very surprising, like surprisingly fun to watch. And this one actually seemed a little more fun to watch, which is interesting because the premise of the game is just you're the monsters and you're trying to destroy the city without being killed by the military or anything like that. So that's just that's kind of funny. So how did they make this premise? The story itself was actually quite creative for an arcade game that had no story. Basically, you have Dwayne Johnson, Naomi Harris, Jeffrey Dean Morgan. They all star in it, as well as others too. But those are the three main stars. Just kind of saying. But Dwayne Johnson, he plays a primatologist, so he studies primates, and he helps operate a gorilla reservation kind of place, where there's George, the albino gorilla, and basically he gets infected by this like pathogen that kind of falls from space into his enclosure, and it's from space because this is from Entergy, I think. Not Entergy, that's my that's an actual company, but whatever, like the evil corporation, they were experimenting stuff in space to make things bigger and more aggressive, and the thing like their ship exploded. Their experiments, the little canisters, they kind of fell into various areas, and so one of them happened to be George's enclosure, and a national park in Wyoming where wolves are. I think they named it Ralph, Ralph the Wolf. And then there's that darn gator. So, yeah, they all, start getting really big, and they start, just becoming a little too much trouble. And the corporations that make these things, pretty much, they are trying to hush it up and get rid of them and just get the DNA so they can, start doing their actual experiments instead of experiments gone wrong. So they pretty much send the signal up on their tower to get the monsters all up in the tower to blow up the building. They're pretty much trying to make the military destroy their creations for them. But, it's up to Dwayne Johnson, Naomi Harris, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan to find a way to save George, especially the nice albino gorilla, and stop the wolf and the gator from destroying everything, and from the military destroying pretty much the entire city of Chicago. So yeah, what did I think of it? Okay, well, it was fun. I'll say that. I had a lot more fun with this than with Tomb Raider. Not saying that Tomb Raider is bad at all. It is, but I think, I don't know what it is. I think I'm just a guy that loves seeing monsters destroy buildings and blowing stuff up. I think that's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. It's just dumb fun. You just turn your brain off, but it's still enjoyable. Like, the characters were still likable and great, and I'm saying Tomb Raider wasn't. It's just a whole different genre. I think Tomb Raider could have been a much better film if they were just smarter and just with characters and had a little more to do, and yeah, I think it could have been a lot better. But for what we got, it was still fun. Here, you're not expecting much. I'm not expecting much. It's a freaking arcade game, I'm just thinking this is gonna be really stupid, like Pacific Rim Uprising stupid, and I did not like Pacific Rim Uprising. I thought that was dumb, but no, this was a fun movie. Because it doesn't take itself too seriously, for one. I mean, Dwayne Johnson survives a stupid bullet to the abdomen. He's running around and everything. I mean, sure, you can say adrenaline rush, but you know, he's doing so much of that. It's like, okay, you know, did that bullet just, you know, just a flesh wound? Was that it? You have you have freaking you know, George. He survives a whole lot. And I was like, okay, man, how far are they gonna, you know, pull this, you know, fast regeneration BS? You know, when's it too far? Yeah, it's just there's just a lot of ridiculous stuff. Naomi Harris and Dwayne Johnson, you know, surviving a skyscraper falling down by having half a helicopter working. You know, there's just stuff that you got to go with. A lot of ridiculous absurdities. You get your stereotypical, you know, military bosses that just don't listen to a darn thing you say. I mean, as ridiculous as it sounds, it's the most logical thing that, you know, will happen in the movie. But hey, you know, it's like I said, the movie does not take itself too seriously. It knows what it is, and it is having fun doing it. And that's pretty much, you know, and Dwayne Johnson, he said, like, that's his style, you know, that's what he sells. He sells these type of movies. And this didn't do so well at the box office, at least in the US. Worldwide, it's doing just fine, making a lot of money. It's making up for it, you know, so they're doing fine right there. But yeah, it's still a it's a dumb movie, but it's a fun movie. Editing not too bad, you know, you're having people do stupid stuff. Monster, like George, he kind of looked like a discounted Planet of the Apes character. And I mean that in that it's like motion capture, CGI just wasn't, you know, just wasn't as great, you know. You could tell they were on a smaller budget than, say, Planet of the Apes, or Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, War for the Planet of the Apes, you know, whichever one, you know. But yeah, just it didn't look as good and clean as Caesar. You know, Dwayne was a great guy, you know. I loved the relationship between him and George, and I think that was the selling point, you know. And I wish that they focused on that a little more, instead of, like, you know, I mean, the beginning scene with The Rock, with George was probably the most powerful one emotionally for them, you know. Just it set the tone for how the relationship was going to be, and yeah, it was pretty cool. But yeah, there just wasn't a whole lot of that, you know. Even during, you know, George's scared phase of him transitioning into, or just transforming into a larger, more aggressive gorilla, there just wasn't a whole lot of that with that. I don't even remember them giving him the antidote, really. It just I guess it just happened. So yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, so I mean, there's definitely plot holes, logical flaws, a bunch of, you know, baloney that goes on, but yeah, Jeffrey Dean Morgan's character, I mean, he starts out as like a jerk agent, you know, but he turns out to be, you know, a good guy. He wants to do what's best for the people. If you know who Jeffrey Dean Morgan is outside of this movie, he is Negan in Walking Dead, and he is probably the most evil person you'll ever see. But, you know, people just love him because he's that evil. Here, he's actually a good guy. And I'm like, yeah, okay, you know what, that's a relief. You know, you're not sticking to, you know, a certain type of character, really. So that was refreshing. Naomi Harris, you know, she plays, you know, the scientist trying to save the day, trying to make up for stuff. She had good intentions, but, you know, she kind of did stuff to try manipulate information, lie to, get what she wanted. So Dwayne the Rock Johnson's character arc is to, you know, be more acceptable of people, treat, not all people are evil, because he's coming from that background, because he's, in the past, he, worked with, stopping poachers from killing, gorillas or African wildlife, or just any wildlife, from poachers. So he's seeing, humanity at its worst, and so his goal, or his arc, is to see that not all humanity is like that, and there are people out there that are willing to help and be compassionate, not towards just each other, but to animals as well, especially George, because that's the one that he is attached to the most. That character arc was weak. I wish it was a little stronger. They kind of mention it every now and then, but it's kind of forced. Exposition. This is an exposition-heavy movie. A lot of expositional dialogue going on, especially in the first 20 minutes. I wish that there was a better way to, give out exposition, because it's necessary, but it's just, at least it wasn't like Tyler Perry, where it's like, okay, now this is a very important client that we have to get to. Do not be late for this, or else bad stuff's gonna happen. We're gonna lose our business. They're gonna take the trucks away. They're gonna take our house. It's really important that you get there on time. And then, of course, guess what happens? Oh my gosh, Tyler Perry's acrimony was a mess. Okay, so I'm rambling a bit here, but I'll say, you know what? Rampage is fun. If you've already watched The Avengers, I've watched it twice already now, and I still love it just as much as I did this first time. Even a little more, even. Go watch Rampage a little bit to make you feel better, because it's just a lighthearted, stomping Rampage movie. It's just a bunch of monsters, bunch of monsters and science experiments, just blowing stuff up. And I think this is the same director that did San Andreas. So, I mean, this is kind of his ballpark, and I think he did a good job. So, way to go, dude. And yeah, who knows what they're going to do. This is probably the only movie they're going to make of Rampage. Don't know why they would make another one. Guys, you can't really do this type of movie again. But yeah, that's all I got. I'm going to give this a high five. A low high five. It's not something I would watch again. But, with MoviePass, where you can just... And I'm not sponsored by them. I wish I was. That'd be awesome. With MoviePass, I'm able to watch these movies that, I normally wouldn't see in theaters. Just because of picking and choosing. But in this case, I could watch it. And it was really good. I mean, dumb. And definitely not Oscar material. But, I had a fun time. And, just not a whole lot of expectations for an arcade game movie. But, man, I was surprised at, how much of a fun time I was having. So, that's all I got. Go give it a watch, I think you'll be surprised. Until next time, my name is Brian, and I will see you at the movies.